It now gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage someone who really requires very little introduction, Australia's 26th Prime Minister, the Honourable Kevin Rudd, to provide the Australia Day message. On the eve of Australia Day, it is important to remember and recognise Prime Minister Rudd's contribution to Australia, many contributions to Australia, including his historic and healing formal apology to Australia's Indigenous peoples, Prime Minister Rudd successfully steered Australia through the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. Prime Minister Rudd was also responsible for the appointment of Australia's first female Governor-General, Dame Quentin Bryce. And internationally, he courageously, at the time, ratified the Kyoto Protocol, increased Australia's troop commitment to fight alongside America in the war on terror, and he led the expansion of the East Asia Summit to include the United States. Please join me in welcoming the Honourable Kevin Rudd.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and Ambassador John Berry, Consul General Nick Minchin, the Honourable Craig Laundy, who's here from Australia, representing the Turnbull Government, distinguished guests, my fellow Australians, fellow New Yorkers, one and all. And I begin tonight by honouring, in fact, our first Australians, who first settled our continent some 70,000 years ago, and whose cultures represent the oldest continuing cultures on Earth. I also honour those Australians who have come more recently to our land from every single country on God's earth, all equal members of our great Australian family. And I'd like to wish each and every one of you here this evening a terrific Australia Day, both now and through to the day itself. Did any of you happen to come through the demo outside tonight, by the way? Yeah. I didn't realise they all knew that Nick Minchin was here, so they told me it was all about you, Nick. There's another bloke in Washington they were less concerned about. It's great to be here at the Australia Day Gala. Are you sick and tired of going to galas? Gala, gala, or as we say in Queensland, Gala. So where are you all from tonight? Who's here from the great state of Queensland? You can see them all. Oh, the cultured crowd. I'm one of them. There's a Yahoo there, I can see. Anyone from the great state of New South Wales? We all have our problems. What about the People's Republic of Victoria? You fixed the arrow yet? No. South Australia? The super cultured crowd. Yeah, we know that. Basically, it's basically booze, isn't it, guys? Sandgropers from the West. Vocal, concentrated, and a minority. Taswegia. Okay, good to see you, Tassie. The Territory, Crocodile Country. Okay, the Crocs have been busy. The ACT. Hey. The territory that shouldn't have been one. Now, in terms of the rest of the room, given that it's Australia Day, I need to ask this question as well. How many of you come from convict families? Come on, you can own up. It's America. They have criminals here too. Okay, that's me as well. In fact, you know, when I became Prime Minister, the American Mormons walked in the door and said, "We're going to do your family tree." I said, "No need to do that. I know I've got a convict forebear, Thomas Rudd, 2nd Fleet." They came back a month later and said, "No, you've got 5 convict forebears in your family tree," which, as you know, is a good preparation for politics. How many of you claim to be the descendants of free settlers? How many of you just don't know? That's pretty good. Do we have Indigenous Australians with us tonight? Good on ya. First Australians. You know, Australia would not have been settled had this mob, our friends of the United States, failed in the Revolutionary War. They had the temerity to defeat the British Empire. As a result, what happened? Britain lost its jail down at Savannah in Georgia. What did the British have to do? Invent a new jail. QED, Australia. Now, had the Americans lost the Revolutionary War, all of you, including myself, who were of convict origin, would have in fact been sent to Georgia. Think about that. You could have all been down there voting 75% for Mr. Trump. And had I played my cards right, I could have ended up as Governor of Georgia rather than Prime Minister of Australia. On this presidential inauguration day, we reflect on the past and the future of our two great democracies. Australia and America, while young countries, are among the world's oldest continuing democracies. We need to remind ourselves afresh that the democratic project is indeed a very recent project in history. It's also a very fragile project which we must continue to nurture. This is difficult in the challenging times in which we now all live, both here and around the world, in the democracies of the world. But the alternative, my friends, is too frightening to contemplate. Both in America and in Australia, we're proud of the fact that our liberties have been hard won. They should never be surrendered lightly, because there is nothing inevitable about democracy in the modern world. It can be destroyed much more rapidly than it has been created. Democracy's future will hinge on an active citizenry, or else it will wither and die as a result of the indifference from the many yielding to the extremism of the few. Which brings me to my next point. In this country, America, the election of President Trump has seen much division, and that division will continue. But the fact remains that under the constitutional conventions of this country and the role of the Electoral College, Mr. Trump is the democratically elected President of the United States and should be respected as such. We must all, therefore, seek to work constructively with him for the good of both our countries and the good of the world. Mr. Trump's presidency will be controversial both at home and abroad, but we in Australia must not allow division and controversy to diminish either our friendship or our alliance with the United States. Presidents and prime ministers come and go. I have some experience of that. But the democratic values for which our two countries have fought and died form a much deeper and enduring bond between us. So I say to you, in the challenging years that lie ahead, we must continue to tender carefully the garden of this US-Australia relationship and this alliance, and tender that relationship with much love and care. Finally, this brings me to each and every one of you, the Australians here present, who have the privilege of living and working here in America, and you all have a critical role to play. Each and every one of you are ambassadors for Australia here, whether you like it or not. Extraordinarily, you have been extraordinary ambassadors. Whatever field you are engaged in, whether it's the industries, the universities, the arts, the not-for-profits, the professions in which you represent, I hear stories each day in the 2 years I've lived in this city of the remarkable things that you are doing. I hear it from my American friends. From people like Andrew Liveris, who's been appointed by President Trump to head the National Manufacturing Council of this country, through to the young bloke I just met who came here as a young entrepreneur a few years ago and has invented his own removable grip for a golf club. That's you. See, I've got a memory, mate. Mind you, he's a smart Australian. He got the table closest to the bar over there. so that you rip it off and put it back onto your club, and it's always got your grip with it. Young entrepreneurs like that, great captains of industry like Liveris, and all of you in between. Because I'd say this as someone who's had some experience of political office. Your actions as individuals, your innovations as Australians abroad, your values each speak volumes for the country from which we all hail and the land that we love down under. So friends, on this 229th Australia Day, I would simply encourage all of you to continue to hold high the good name of Australia in all that you do and say and contribute here in America, because your voice is bigger than any of us who come from government or politics more broadly. And I ask you all to continue to be the human bridge that binds our two peoples, whatever the challenges our two nations may face in the troubled years ahead. And together, let us all advance Australia fair together. I thank you.